You know, if you pick up an 800-year-old medieval Italian poem, you generally expect to find a lot of archaic language, maybe some jousting, or, some very outdated ideas about the world.
Right, definitely not a modern science textbook.
Exactly. You definitely do not expect to stumble into a masterclass in psychology, political theory, mathematics, and, well, what basically amounts to a 14th century description of the Big Bang.
It really is wild when you get into it.
It is. But that is exactly what we are looking at today. Welcome to our deep dive into Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy.
It's a genuinely staggering piece of work. I mean, when most people hear the name Dante, their minds immediately go straight to fire, brimstone, and pitchforks.
The whole stereotypical hell aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. But the stack of sources we're looking at today paints a much more intricate picture. We've got academic reviews of modern translations, essays on Augustinian philosophy, and these incredibly detailed structural analyses of Dante's use of optics in medieval math.
Not to mention the historical commentaries that ground the text in reality. So our mission today is to decode how Dante actually uses this epic journey to map out the human psyche, the cosmos, and the fundamental nature of our own desires.
It's basically a shortcut to understanding the profound architecture behind one of history's greatest works.
Right. And just to set the stage before we dive in, our sources do cover Dante's heavy critiques of 14th century political fashions, specifically the bloody rivalry between the black and white Guelphs in Florence.
And his pretty severe judgments of church figures from that era, too.
Like Pope Boniface VIII. And we will be impartially reporting on these historical critiques because they are deeply woven into the fabric of the poem. But, we're simply conveying the ideas as they exist in the source material. We aren't endorsing any of the historical, political, or religious sides involved.
Absolutely. To understand the mechanism of the poem, you really have to understand the turbulent world Dante was writing in. But we are looking at this strictly as an analytical exercise just to see how he structured his universe.
Well, let's start with the architecture of that universe. Because to reach the philosophical heights of paradise, Dante starts us in the absolute mud of human failure.
The Inferno.
Yes, let's step into Inferno. The sources talk at length about this core concept governing hell called contrapasso, which translates roughly to moral symmetry or poetic justice.
Right, it's not just random torture.
Okay, let's unpack this. If we were to apply this to the modern world, it's like if someone is a toxic workaholic, their punishment isn't being thrown in a fire. Their punishment is being permanently chained to a desk in a fluorescent-lit, empty room forever.
That is a remarkably precise way to frame it.
Their internal psychological obsession just becomes their literal physical cage.
Exactly. The punishments in Inferno are the physical manifestation of the sin itself. The sinner's internal state is turned inside out. Take the second circle, for example, the realm of the lustful.
Oh, Francesca and Paolo, right?
Yes. Dante meets these two lovers who let their carnal desires completely overpower their rational minds. Their punishment isn't fire. They're swept up in an eternal, violently dark storm.
Because they couldn't control themselves in life.
Right. The relentless whipping winds perfectly mirror the uncontrollable passions that they allowed to toss them around when they were alive.
The psychology there makes total sense. And the sources point out that this physical mirroring gets even more insidious as you go deeper into the realms of fraud. Like the false counselors in the eighth circle.
The ones hidden in fire.
Yeah. These were brilliant, silver-tongued people who use their intellect to manipulate and deceive others. And Dante has them encased entirely in individual pillars of flame. The flames conceal their bodies from the outside world, just as their deceit concealed the truth from everyone around them in life.
And the fire also represents the consuming, destructive nature of a lie. It eats away at everything it touches.
Wow, yeah.
But the most chilling example, in every sense of the word, is at the very bottom, the ninth circle. This is reserved for traitors. People who betrayed their family, their country, or their guests.
Now, if you were designing a medieval hell, you might expect the devil and the worst sinners to be in the hottest, most fiery furnace imaginable.
But he doesn't do that.
No. Instead, Dante places traitors like Judas and the political traitor Count Ugolino in a massive frozen lake of ice.
Because treason is fundamentally a cold-hearted crime. You have to ice over your own humanity to betray someone who trusts you.
Oh, that's such a striking image.
They severed the warm bonds of human trust, loyalty, and community. So their eternal reality is to be frozen, solid, completely immobilized, and entirely isolated from one another.
They can't even move.
Nope. The deeper the betrayal, the deeper they are submerged in the ice. They can't even shed a tear without it freezing their eyes shut.
That brings up a fascinating physical analogy from the structural analysis in our sources. There is this idea that Dante actually structured the geography of hell to resemble a distorted, diseased human body.
Yes, the body politic.
It is wild to think about. Limbo, right at the top, equates to memory and the brain. It's where the unbaptized philosophers and intellectuals reside. The circle of lust corresponds to the roving eyes.
Gluttony is the gullet.
Right. Sullenness is tied to the spleen, violence to the breast where wrath originates. And then you get to the male bulge, the deep, trench-like circles of fraud.
Which looks like the intestines.
Exactly. From a bird's eye view, it looks exactly like the winding block paths of human intestines.
It's a brilliant architectural choice. It leans on the medieval notion that sin physically distorts the human form just as it corrupts the soul. The pilgrim's journey down into hell is a descent through increasing materiality, literal excrement, and bodily corruption.
Leading right to Satan. But wait, I need to stop you there. We established that Dante was exiled from Florence by a rival political faction, the Black Guelphs.
He was, yeah.
And suddenly, we see him writing his political enemies and corrupt popes who opposed him into these horrific levels of hell, freezing them in ice, shoving them in intestines.
I see where you're going with this.
Isn't this just an elaborate, petty revenge fantasy? How is this supposed to be a profound vision of divine justice and not just a 14th century hit piece?
That tension is arguably the masterstroke of the entire Inferno. To understand what Dante is doing, you have to separate Dante the poet from Dante the pilgrim.
Okay, what's the difference?
The poet is the author who has already completed the journey and understands the grand scheme of divine justice. But the pilgrim is the character inside the story experiencing it for the first time.
Oh, got it.
And early on, the pilgrim falls for the very trap you are describing. He feels overwhelming sympathy for these sinners. When Francesca tells her tragic love story in the storm, the pilgrim is so overcome with pity that he literally passes out.
Wait, really? He faints because he feels bad for someone who is supposed to be receiving divine justice.
Yes. But as he journeys deeper into the realms of calculated malice and fraud, his education progresses. He starts to see the raw ugliness of these actions. By the time he reaches the corrupt politicians and traitors in the ice, he feels zero sympathy.
So he hardens up a bit.
Exactly. He is physically harsh with them. The journey through hell is an intellectual and emotional education for the pilgrim. He is learning to align his own emotional responses with a higher justice.
And realizing that earthly wealth, status, or political affiliation mean absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of eternity. I mean, even a pope can end up upside down in a fiery trench if he's sold out his office.
Precisely. Divine justice doesn't care about your worldly resume.
But, if all these sinners are essentially trapping themselves in their own psychological cages, what is the core engine driving them to do it in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because they can't all just be inherently evil people who wake up wanting to be trapped in ice. And this brings us out of hell into the exact midpoint of the entire poem Mount Purgatory.
Purgatorio is where the psychology really deepens.
Right, because Virgil, Dante's guide, delivers this massive philosophical discourse right in the middle of the text. He claims that every single action, good or bad, stems from love.
It's a bold claim.
I have to admit, this threw me when I read it. Here's where it gets really interesting. Wait, how can loving something be the root of a horrible crime? Isn't love inherently good?
Well, the ancient Greeks had this concept called eudaimonia. It basically means that human beings are strictly hardwired to hunt for happiness. We are built to seek out what we perceive to be the good.
Oh, yeah. So we can't help but search for it.
Right. Everything we do is aimed at that. Virgil explains that no creature is ever without love. The problem isn't the engine of love itself. The problem is the steering wheel. It's how we aim that love.
Okay, so love is basically the compass needle. We are supposed to point toward true north, but if we put a magnet in our pocket, the needle gets pulled sideways, and we walk right off a cliff thinking we're going the right way.
That compass analogy captures it perfectly. Virgil breaks down the 3 ways the compass needle gets misdirected. First, you can love a twisted, counterfeit good.
What does that look like?
It happens when you mistakenly believe that bringing your neighbor down will somehow elevate you and make you happy. That distorted love manifests as pride, envy, and wrath.
Wishing harm on others.
Okay. Second, you can love the true good, but deficiently. You know what is right and beautiful, but you just lack the energy or desire to pursue it. That is the sin of sloth.
So if you can love a twisted thing or love the right thing too little, I'm guessing the third way is loving the right thing, but obsessing over it until it ruins you.
Spot on. The third way is loving true, but lesser goods
Oh.
excessively. We're talking about money, food, or physical pleasure.
Things that aren't bad on their own.
Exactly. They are not inherently evil at all, but they are finite. They cannot ultimately satisfy the infinite human heart. If you obsess over them and love them as if they were the ultimate good, you fall into avarice, gluttony, or lust.
So it's a fundamental failure because it simply cannot make you happy.
Yes. True freedom, in Dante's framework, isn't just doing whatever you want. It is actively aligning your desires with things that will not ultimately enslave you.
And the sources tie this back to a concept from St. Augustine, pondus meum amor meus, which translates to, my love is my weight.
I love that phrase.
Down in hell, there was a literal, crushing physical gravity pulling the sinners down to the center of the earth. But here on the mountain Purgatory, the physics change. There is an upward weight.
It sounds contradictory, but it makes perfect sense theologically.
Right. It is the weight of purifying desire, pulling the soul upward.
Augustine argued that just as a stone naturally falls to the earth and fire naturally rises to the sky, human beings are pulled by the gravitational weight of what they love.
So your desires dictate your gravity.
Exactly. If you love base material things obsessively, you are pulled down into the mud. If you elevate your love toward the divine and the beautiful, you are naturally pulled upward. The people in Purgatory are suffering, but it is a rehabilitative suffering. They are actively shifting their internal gravity.
But what about the people who don't have a magnet at all?
The ones who just drift.
Yeah, the people whose compass needle just spins endlessly because they refuse to care about anything. This brings us to a really disturbing group of people Dante meets very early on, in the antechamber of hell. The neutrals.
The neutrals offer perhaps the most chilling warning in the entire poem for a modern reader.
They really do.
These are the souls who live their lives without praise or disgrace. They never committed to anything genuinely good, but they never committed to anything truly evil either.
They just played it safe.
Right. They just followed the herd, protecting their own comfort, existing without truly living.
And the imagery here is incredibly visceral. Heaven rejects them because they aren't good, but the deep abyss of hell doesn't want them either.
Because the evil angels might actually gloat over them, and they don't even deserve that.
Wow. So they are forced to eternally sprint after a blank, meaningless banner while being constantly stung by wasps. It's like being stuck in the ultimate waiting room of life, paralyzed by the inability to choose a door, but the waiting room itself is actively torturing you.
It is a devastating critique of apathy. On the mountain of Purgatory, this connects to that sin of sloth we mentioned earlier, a kind of spiritual torpor or numbness.
A complete lack of drive.
And the sources note how deeply relevant this is today. We live in an age of constant information, the 24-hour news cycle, the endless feeds.
So much noise.
Exactly. The easiest, most protective response to being overwhelmed is to just care about nothing, to embrace a de-eroticized indifference. Dante is arguing that this apathy isn't a safe, neutral ground. It is the great danger.
Refusing to choose is a choice.
Yes, and it's a choice that makes you less than human.
When you put it in the context of modern doom scrolling, those waspings and blank banners feel incredibly real. So if apathy and indifference are the disease, how does Dante actually suggest we cure it?
What's fascinating here is that the cure isn't just gritting your teeth and manufacturing willpower. The cure is the active participation in beauty.
Participation, not just observation.
Right. It is an education of desire. You see this vividly in how Dante's guides function in the story. Virgil represents human reason. He can explain the mechanics of sin, he can show Dante the consequences, and he can guide him up the mountain of rehabilitation.
But reason and logic can only take a human being so far.
Exactly.
Because at the top of the mountain, Virgil literally vanishes, and Beatrice takes over.
Beatrice represents divine grace, faith, and most importantly, breathtaking beauty. When Dante finally sees her, he isn't just intellectually stimulated, he is overwhelmed.
The sources describe this philosophical transition as moving from an advent to an adventure.
I love that phrasing. Beauty arrives in front of you. That is the advent. But true beauty isn't something you can just passively consume. It demands a response.
It calls you to act.
It demands that you transcend your current self to pursue it. You don't cure apathy by forcing yourself to care. You cure it by allowing the overwhelming beauty of the good to awaken you, turning your passive numbness into an active, joyful vigilance.
So once your desire is purified, once your compass is actually pointing true north and your engine is running on that beauty, you literally lift off the ground.
You ascend.
You leave the physical mountain behind and enter the cosmos. And this is where the poem shifts gears entirely. We go from psychology and ethics in Purgatory straight into mind-bending physics and mathematics in Paradiso.
Paradiso is undeniably the most challenging part of the poem, but it is also the most visionary.
It gets so abstract.
It really does. Dante leaves the Earth and travels outward through the concentric spheres of the planets and stars. But as he ascends, he is immediately confronted with the philosophical problem of multiplicity.
Like, why are things different?
Exactly. If everything comes from one perfect God, why are there differences in the universe? Why are some souls seemingly closer to God, or brighter, or fundamentally different from others?
And he asks Beatrice about this, specifically looking at the dark spots on the moon. He thinks it is just a matter of dense and rare physical material.
Right, a material explanation.
But Beatrice essentially sets up a 14th century physics experiment. She tells him to imagine setting up 3 mirrors. 2 are side by side in front of you, and the third is placed farther back between them.
And then you place a light source.
Yeah, you put a candle behind your back so its light reflects in all 3 mirrors. The reflection in that middle mirror is physically smaller because it is further away, but it is equally as bright as the other 2.
What is remarkable about this passage is that the physics here, the invariance of apparent brightness with distance, was an original scientific discovery by Dante.
Wait, really? He discovered that?
Yes, he is using actual medieval optics to prove a theological point. The mirrors represent the diverse souls in heaven. They might be at different distances from the source, meaning their capacity to reflect the light is different in size, but they are all entirely filled with the exact same brightness.
So everyone is totally full, even if they hold different amounts.
Exactly. The universe has infinite multiplicity, but there is an equal total reception of salvation based on each individual's capacity. A thimble and a barrel can both be completely full, even if they hold different amounts.
That is a beautiful way to explain it. He uses optics to explain capacity, and then he takes it even further with mathematics to explain movement.
The primo mobile.
Yes. When they reach the primo mobile, which in their cosmology is the outermost, fastest spinning sphere of the physical universe that generates all the movement for the planets below it, Beatrice uses prime factorization to explain how it works.
She gets right into the math.
She says the motion of this massive sphere gives rise to all other motion, just as the number 10 arises from its prime factors 2 and 5.
Right, because in medieval number theory, the number 2 represents change and movement.
And 5 is the world.
Exactly. The number 5 represents the physical world, and 10 is the perfect number, representing the Empyrean, the highest immaterial heaven where God resides.
So she is mathematically explaining that the entire physical material world of space, time, and movement is just a factored expression of a perfect unified whole.
It's a staggering conceptual leap.
So what does this actually look like? Because earlier we talked about Satan being at the center of hell, and Satan occupies a massive, finite physical point at the very bottom of the earth.
He is geographically stuck in space.
But when Dante finally looks at God at the edge of the universe, he doesn't see an old man with a beard on a throne.
No, not at all.
He sees a single, dimensionless point of light, a punto, that is everywhere and nowhere. It has no physical size, it is outside of space and time entirely, but all of space, time, and infinity seem to explode out of it. He is basically describing a mathematical singularity, the Big Bang.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Dante is resolving the ultimate paradox of human existence. The entire Divine Comedy is a journey outward. He travels down through the earth, up a mountain, and out into the massive expanse of the solar system and the stars.
A huge physical journey.
But as he reaches the very edge of the physical universe, he realizes that the journey outward was actually a journey inward.
It's like the universe folds in on itself.
The universe turns completely inside out. He converges on that single dimensionless point. At the climax of the poem, the seer, the seen, and the act of seeing all become one unified thing.
The reflection and the source of the light completely merge.
Exactly. The physical vastness of the cosmos is revealed to be just a reflection of an intensely concentrated singular truth.
Wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We started in the visceral mud of Inferno, mapping the anatomy of our worst mistakes and seeing how our internal obsessions physically trap us.
A dark place to start.
But then we climbed Mount Purgatory, discovering that our hardwired hunt for happiness, our misdirected love, is the root of all our problems, and that the apathy of the neutrals is the ultimate trap.
The waiting room of life.
Exactly. And finally, we soared into Paradiso, seeing how Dante used optics, math, and the physics of a unified universe to point toward a beautiful, dimensionless singularity.
It remains one of the most comprehensive maps of the human condition ever created, disguised as a medieval journey.
It truly is. And I want to leave you with one final lingering image from our sources that we haven't touched on yet today. Back in Inferno, Canto 26, Dante meets the legendary Greek hero Ulysses, or Odysseus.
Oh, yes, a powerful scene.
Ulysses is burning in a flame. But his sin wasn't typical malice or greed. His sin was that he used his brilliant intellect to sail past the Pillars of Hercules, the absolute edge of the known world, just for the sake of consuming more information.
He was endlessly curious, but without direction.
Right. He didn't have a moral compass. He just wanted more data, more experiences. He sailed out into the unknown, caught a brief, tantalizing glimpse of the mountain of Purgatory in the distance, and a whirlwind immediately struck his ship and sank it.
He had an insatiable intellect, but he lacked the right orientation of love to actually understand what he was seeing.
So in our modern age of endless doom scrolling, of total information overload, and even our own personal deep dives into podcasts and articles, it poses a serious question. Are we acting like Ulysses?
Just consume it.
Are we just consuming data, swiping to the next thing, gathering disconnected information until we sink under the weight of it all?
Yeah.
Or are we going to be like Dante? Are we going to allow the knowledge we gain to actively educate our desires, shift our internal gravity, and actively pull us upward? Think about that the next time you find your thumb endlessly scrolling through the void.